Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Steve Seepersod coming to you from the campus of Binghamton University, and I'm so excited to welcome you to the very first webinar of this 2025-26 season here at the Binghamton Learning Network. And today's program is AI for Everyone, Making Marketing Smarter. This is part of our webinar series. We put a different program together every month. We're going to have a very, very busy fall here. I'll tell you more later about the programs that we have that are coming up in the next couple of months, taking us through the end of the calendar year. So excited to have you here on the program today. I hope you had a fabulous summer and that your fall is off to a good start. And it's great to be back together and doing the things that we love. And the webinar series is just one part of the lifelong learning offerings that we have here at your Alumni Association. I say your Alumni Association because we do these programs for you and with you, and these are meant to take care of the things that you want and that you need and you expect from your alma mater, Binghamton University. I'm going to go ahead and put up here on the screen the website address for our brand new Advancing Binghamton website. We spent a lot of time and effort over the summer to revamp the site, and the address is up here on the screen, binghamton.edu/advancement/connect. So if you want to find out more about the lifelong learning offerings that we have here through your Alumni Association, this is a great place to do it. All sorts of other things are happening as well. We have homecoming next weekend, so I'll put in a plug for that, September 26th to the 28th here on campus. Homecoming.binghamton.edu is the place to go ahead and sign up. And the deadline is coming up Sunday because it's a week from this coming weekend. So a lot of things moving very fast. So if you want to go ahead and get signed up for that, we would love to see you here. There's still plenty of time to get in on the action of homecoming. Many volunteer opportunities here at the university, many events, virtual events such as these webinars, live in-person events in places like New York City, Binghamton, Washington, D.C., Boston, and we try to break out to other parts of the country. In fact, we have one in Columbus, Ohio coming up in a couple of weeks. So this is a place to go, binghamton.edu/advancement/connect. So we will go ahead and put that back up in a couple of minutes later on in the show. So just a little bit of housekeeping as we always do. This program is meant to be interactive, and we want to take your questions and mix these in during the program and set aside some time at the end for your questions. And so you can email me questions, and my university email is here on the screen, sseepers@binghamton.edu. Also, if you're watching on Facebook or on the microsite with that custom viewing link that was emailed out, there should be a comment box there to ask a question. And so feel free, start whenever you want, and we will mix these in, and our presenter will take these where we can fit these in best. So there's no need to wait until the very end, but we will set aside ample time at the end of the program for your questions, as the interactivity is very, very important to us. We don't want to just talk at you. This should be a conversation. And so if you have questions, we do our best to get them answered as soon as reasonably possible. Okay, all of that aside, now we can go ahead and move on to AI for Everyone, and we can say hello to our featured speaker for today, David Berkowitz. He is from the class of 2000, and coming to us from New York City, has a very, very long list of great accomplishments, and I'll leave it to him to talk about some of these. But he has a new book out, and we'll talk about that. It's called The Non-Obvious Guide to Using AI for Marketing. Not only did he write this book, but he has a number of other publication credits. He's going to Paris later this week and be talking about AI, so I'm very jealous of that because that sounds fabulous. David, welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Well, it's always amazing being back with the Binghamton family, so thanks for having me, Steve.
Thank you.
So yeah, this is really exciting. This one's really near and dear to me. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share too many slides. I'm happy to share the slides after. I've learned so much from Binghamton, not just during my 4 years there, but during my, can't believe I'm saying it, 25 years since, as some of us talk about going back for homecoming. So it should be a really exciting weekend coming up, and a shout out to my old faculty master, Al Voss, for doing a bit of a farewell tour and after an amazing run there. So yeah, this is an especially exciting time, always for Binghamton and definitely for AI. And so I want to walk you through a number of things that I'm seeing through marketing consulting, through running a community, AI Marketers Guild, that's all about how marketers are using AI, I don't think there are many experts out there in AI. I was just attending a talk from someone who's very deep in AI at Google, and he was very quick to say how he's not an expert. And but there are some of us who are spending a little more time on it and picking up some things to share along the way. As you have questions today, I'm very curious to hear them. And if there are some that hit you in the middle of the night and that you realize you wish you asked it, just reach out. Say you're Binghamton alum or you're watching the program, and I'll respond extra fast. So yes, AI did help me generate a few of these things. You'll see a lot. I'm a big believer in experiential learning and learning by doing. So I uploaded. Probably tell if you've seen our actual mascot that this is not our beloved Bearcat, but this is what Google and ChatGPT and some others thought I looked like. Here was another version that I kind of like. You could see on the patch didn't quite work, so the spelling was almost so good. It's not so easy for AI to spell anything, let alone Binghamton. But I was like, well, I've got to animate this one. Yeah, let's go. It's me getting really, really amped up for the day. So yeah, you probably tell this isn't real, but give it another few months, maybe it'll be harder to tell the difference. That sure doesn't look like Cleveland Hall, where I spent 3 years on campus. And I mean, we can't have a presentation like this without Baxter chiming in.
You can't have a Binghamton event without me. Baxter, you show off your marketing skills, and then I'll show you my slam dunk.
Look at that. So even he's paying us a visit today. We've got all kinds of special guests. I mean, really, look at all of these special celebrity guests coming in. And so walk you through some of what's going on in AI, some things to watch out for, even some tools that I think are especially useful and might not break the bank for you. So let's dive in. I do love memes. The memes, for better or worse, almost all of them are memes. The memes in this talk are ones I created myself. But there's just all this stuff out there. AI can't do funny. AI can't really make shareable stuff. There's some pretty impressive research coming out of Europe that's saying that AI can actually outscore humans and humans with AI. From this research, humans still created the funniest stuff, and human and AI teams created the most creative and shareable ones rated by other humans, not AI. But you can see that these goalposts keep moving, and some of this is a little scary. So I want to walk you through what's real and not there. I did write a book. Pretty proud of it, being part of this non-obvious guide series. To answer the most obvious question in here, no, AI did not write it. It did help me organize it. I used a lot of tools like ChatGPT to brainstorm the initial proposal based on my writing. I used Google's Notebook LM. I'll show you links to all these kinds of things if some of these are not familiar to you. But I used Notebook LM to help me organize some of the chapters and even figure out which chapter should come in which order. It was some of the last work I did. I've got a lot of guides in the book. Again, I want to share everything. You don't have to register for this stuff. You can go to the URL, you can scan QR codes. You'll see a bunch of QR codes in this talk. You miss anything beyond watching the replay, again, I'll send you the deck, whatever you need. All of this, if there's something that helps you do your job better, or just come up with some new ideas. I'll show you a little passion project I was working on and using some AI for. You can use AI for practically anything, for better or for worse. But three of the big things to watch out for now as we look at the year ahead. GEO is one of many terms for generative engine optimization. It's basically optimizing your brand, maybe even yourself. And if you've seen my name and a certain other person who shares it, I got a lot of work to do. But generative engine optimization, being able to go and come up for the kinds of prompts that people are putting in AI engines. You'll see it called other names like AI engine optimization, AEO. We'll talk a little bit about some things like this in here. Vibe marketing, I think, is fascinating. The idea of vibe anything, if you're older than 20, is that you don't necessarily need to know everything about the thing that you're doing. You can kind of get the vibe of it. I know my 11-year-old daughter, I've got one of her slides in here too. She can explain vibes way better than I can, but I do a lot of vibe coding. I'll show you a Binghamton related example. I vibe coded in less than an hour, a day or two ago. So, and agents, what are these autonomous things that can do all these other things for you? I tried using ChatGPT's agent to order dinner for my daughter and I. I knew it was going to happen. It ordered something wrong. Fortunately, my daughter was a really, really good sport. It would have taken us less time to go to the restaurant on 34th Street and get our food at the table than it would have just for ChatGPT to place this order on Uber Eats. But all of this is changing fast. And I will say this at the end of the talk, but the most important word with AI in any sense of it, for marketing, for personal use, anything, the most important word is yet. Okay. So if something sucks with AI, if like it's messing up the image, like you see some of the stuff in the images I was showing you, if it seems pretty dumb, if it can't go and edit a spreadsheet the way you want it to, give it a little bit. Okay. Someone like, I mean, the guy at Google was just saying he can't keep up with all the announcements coming out of Google, let alone everything else in the industry. So don't feel so bad if folks like Google or folks like me who are doing a lot of writing and speaking about it can't keep up with it either. We're trying. So I and yes, you can see all the custom Binghamton green. I was even trying to get the color palette right for this talk. So you'll see lots of versions of Bearcats throughout. Let's get into a few quick hard truths about AI. It's soon going to be harder not to use AI than to use it. So it's like if you think that just doing anything using social media, editing a Word doc or PowerPoint, just the most mundane, filling out a form, paying for something. AI is getting embedded into everything, whether you like it or not. And so I think it's increasingly important to figure out how to use it to your advantage. There's a lot of hype, though. I mean, if you've been around any kind of professional field for a while, you've probably played some version of buzzword bingo, and it's a terrible game, but you get to go and see some of these same terms and some of these things that are all hype. With AI, I'll say the big difference is a lot of it's real. There's a lot more signal to noise ratio in this hype cycle than I've seen in other areas like Web3, like a lot of the promise of social media and things which have been transformative. But there's a lot that you can actually do. I mean, even just seeing like research firms like Gartner and like there's nothing that's even coming close to what CEOs believe the business impact is going to be. And I don't like to recycle too much material, even if I'm pro recycling, not when it comes to slides, but when it comes to Aragorn and Lord of the Rings, I always think back to this moment whenever I'm going deep in AI, and when he corners Frodo, the little hobbit, in the dark and gloomy inn, and Aragorn says, "Are you frightened? You're not nearly frightened enough." Viggo Mortensen says it way better than me. So my apologies to the Mortensen family. But I don't mean like be terrified about AI. It's just if you're not thinking about what are the implications, if you're not thinking about like, okay, what are the implications of like an entire course you take being powered by AI and the students and the professors using AI for everything. If you're not frightened by the idea of your doctor relying on AI to treat you without necessarily having their own intuition involved, right? Like we've got to think of the implications of this so we can try to prevent some of the worst cases from happening, or so we could try to chart a course that works for us, that works for each other, that is pro-human, which is one of my biases. Maybe I'm silly that way. I don't want to cede everything to the bots just yet. This is the one meme in this deck. I told you almost all the memes were mine. There's a great advertising meme account, digital advertising. And I think, I mean, especially for talk with my alma mater here. So stuff I'm expected to know at work, like none of this is what we learned. And probably, I mean, I know Binghamton's ahead of the curve, but even if you graduated within the past couple of years, you still, might not quite been taught any of this in school because it's moving too fast. And it sure as hell wasn't in the job description. If you try to work with the team and say, no, you can't use ChatGPT or the AI of choice, good luck with that. People will find a way. I was at agencies 20 years ago where sometimes they say, you can't use Facebook at work. Well, maybe not on your work computer, but who under 30 at the time, and obviously expanded much more widely, wasn't just going and taking out their phone and using Facebook on it. So it's like, you've got to find ways. There are important controls you have to put in place. I'm not saying just surrender entirely, but being mindful that as Jeff Goldblum liked to say in Jurassic Park, life finds a way. And we definitely need some chaos theory these days. Teams with AI tend to produce the best results. So something very promising when you're thinking of just how to incorporate AI into workflows. Ethan Mollick is one of the better known researchers in the AI space, but an incredible team that he winds up working with and showing how AI gets incorporated into workflows. I have a book behind me that is not my own. I wish I was brilliant enough as Douglas Rushkoff, Team Human. It's just something I'm always thinking about, like, how do we be on Team Human? How do we empower people? How do we empower each other to do our best work and to some degree even live our best lives, and where AI can fit in and where it doesn't? And I think there are some mixed bags. Like, as AI came out, one of the first things that marketers started to understand was this could radically transform personalization. Okay, like, it's true. I'll show you a couple examples. One of them is going to be super weird. But there, I was literally just talking to this guy about at Google about this, because he was telling me before he talked that they're thinking a lot about liquid content, right? Like, content not being a solid thing, but something really like malleable and flowing, like this lovely beverage of New York State water right here. So there's a lot of good. And I said to him, it's basically rehearsing my talk in front of him, and I'm like, but what about shared experiences? Don't we want that? Like, just because you can create a 10-minute or 10-hour version of a White Lotus scene, first of all, does that mean you should? And secondly, like, what about those, like, holy cow, that happened, that every single one of us who watched White Lotus saw, right? And I think people still crave that. People need that, I'd argue, way more than we have in a very, very long time. Just showing how weird some of this stuff gets here. I actually stumbled on this ad from on Instagram. So clearly Qatar Airways was targeting me very well. And it was just create your own AI story. I did not do this on purpose, so there's nothing wrong with that. But I was a little surprised by the result. I don't even know what button I pushed, but some of this stuff's a little gimmicky where they put the AI in Airways. I like it here. It flowed better. They didn't have to go and change the spelling of their name. But what they did is they took an ad that might have meant nothing to me. I'd like to fly Qatar Airways. I don't believe I ever have. But now I've got this shareable asset here, and it's way more powerful than even some of these early versions of user-generated content that some of us might have seen 5, 10, 15 or more years ago. I used personalization for holiday cards last year. You see an old version of my home office. I've been stuck in here for a while since the pandemic, and maybe one day I'll get a little bit of fresh air. But Aunt Ida is my aunt. I sent her this holiday card. It was like a personalized video. It actually had me saying Ida in the video, even though I only recorded one thing once. I used a tool called HeyGen. I love it. I'll show you some. There's some stuff in here that was created with HeyGen. It's along with Google VO3. great ways to create interactive avatars. And this is stuff that, by the way, you can do for like on HeyGen to use their personalized video thing. This is like less than $100 a month. So maybe not accessible to anyone and everyone, but if you think of like the 6, maybe 7 figures it would have taken to do a campaign like this a few years ago, it's crazy how the costs are coming down. Now, as you get into AI, you see that like when you launch an AI project, the failure rate is pretty high. This stat here came out that it got some traction. This just a few weeks ago, 95% of generative AI pilots are failing. Organizations get zero return from them. I don't think all of this is bad. I think some of this is actually a result of how much experimentation is. I've seen so many waves of adoption of new technologies, and I've never seen organizations try to adopt anything faster than they have when it comes to AI. So some of this is some of my talks and training are how to try to lower that failure rate. But some of this is don't be too scared of failure. So when planning around AI, I promised a meme from my daughter, and as she saw me making some, she came up with her own marketing meme, and I gotta say it was presentation worthy. I had to include this in here, so she gets where things are going. One of the more controversial things you might see here, probably not too controversial, but you don't need an AI marketing strategy. You need to see how AI fits in with your goals, with your organization, with your life. And the answer is sometimes it doesn't, and some things are better without it. AI is wreaking havoc in some areas. You look at the trends from publishing. I actually just saw this second chart from Charter this week coming out on just this plummeting traffic across news sites. A big reason for this is how much summarized information you can get from AI. And so this is a big challenge for marketers right now. It's a big challenge for publishers. When you get some of this information, you don't always need to be able to write that first draft from scratch, but you do need to have a really good eye as to what's good or not. You need to have subject matter expertise. You know, I think about some of the videos I create or websites I create with AI. I'm not a video producer. I'm not a web developer, designer. If you put these tools in the hands of someone who is good at these kinds of skills, then they're going to be way better at these things than I will. And similarly, if you're trying to go and write a press release or some LinkedIn posts, and you've never done that before, I've done a lot of these things. I'll probably be better at using AI for them than you will. So so much of it is it enhances the powers of those who use them if you don't cede all of your skills to AI. And it's crazy how fast AI is evolving. Right? This is a study on the doubling time for just like how this is working with like what kinds of tasks AI can complete on its own. Kind of staggering that we're going from this potential next year to complete a full project from an 8-hour workday without constant supervision and oversight to a few years from now where it's a full work year's worth of projects. We'll see. I mean, there's a phrase that comes up in AI you might have heard called human in the loop, and it's got an even worse acronym. But this human in the loop thing, like I'd like to think humans should always be somewhere in the loop, but at the very least for some of the initial inputs and quality control. But we're seeing this agentic AI take place where humans are often out of the loop. Now, if we look at what's happening with some of these AI summaries or AI overviews, if you're spending some time on Google, and you probably are, then as you could tell, I have not presented this version of this before. So what makes a Speedy special? Well, I go and Google and it gives me the AI overview. There's a photo of a delicious Speedy right there. Maybe it's from Speedy and Rib Pit. Maybe it's AI generated. And it's telling me right off the bat all these kinds of things that I probably forgot since I lived on campus. And but now you see that like you can just hint at a couple things, like on this snapshot I'm showing you here. You see Bon Appetit hiding at the bottom, and there's some other results hiding there. And maybe you'll actually be intrigued to see this 2021 YouTube video or a recipe for homemade chicken Speedies, and it's making me kind of hungry right now. I want to try these sometime. I don't know where to get a Speedy in New York. Open to recommendations from you for that too. But what this ultimately means, you can get so much of this information before you go to any of these other publishers, and that's where a lot of the publisher declines are coming from in terms of traffic. And so a greater and greater share of these searches are having these AI overviews overhead. And those AI overviews, as you've seen, take up a lot of real estate on the screen, whether you're on desktop or mobile. While Google's actually been weathering things extremely well, their stock price is doing great. Their AI tech, Gemini is some of the best out there, and for certain use cases, I think it is the best out there. I use it a ton, but this could also be a bellwether of some search activity shifting. Right now, ChatGPT, from any data I've seen, isn't anywhere close to Google search volume, but even the nature of search is changing, right? Like if you keep refining a prompt, is that lots of searching? Is it just one search you're editing? I don't know. A lot of these definitions are going to need to adapt. And people are relying on these summaries quite a bit. And very often they result in 0 clicks. The flip side of it is there's some indications that once someone does click, especially if you're more product oriented, then you're going to get more relevant people coming to you. Now, it's like if someone just wants to know some information about Ford, then like you don't really care if they're visiting your site. If someone wants to test drive Ford, well, then you probably do want them there, and they're probably not going to get that information from a little snippet of text atop a Google search result. So let's see just some of the ways AI is being used. One of my favorite memes, again, it's not just like whether you use AI, everyone's using AI to some degree or another. How are you actually applying all of this? What are you creating? Is it actually are you finding a way to change your business, transform it? There's work I've taken on as a consultant, as the marketing activities that I've done that I could not do so efficiently without AI. Maybe I could have done them, but I'd have to put 10 times as many hours into things like analyzing transcripts instead of asking transcripts questions from calls that then allow me in turn to charge a much more modest fee and be able to actually bill for some kind of service, right? So there are all kinds of ways that AI can be part of your job and make some of your work possible as you adapt. I talk a lot of everyone needs to talk about prompting, prompt engineering. John Stewart's made fun of it. I'm pretty sure John Oliver's made fun of it. Every John has made fun of prompt engineering at some point. But I've tried all kinds of tips and tricks. I've worksheets where I list some of them. The thing that matters most is really asking good questions. If you are intellectually curious, if you really want to get to the heart of something, a very good conversationalist is someone with even like really good emotional intelligence is ironically going to be much better equipped to use AI than someone who can't really carry on a conversation and doesn't really care what someone's answer is. We've all met those people. I've been on dates where I've been that person. It happens to the best of us even, and also folks like me. But curiosity goes a very, very, very long way.
David,
So-
I'd like to, I'm sorry, just to jump in with
Please.
a comment and a question, because something came prompted by one of the slides here on the screen. I'll just pull this down for a second. Don't worry. We'll be able to bring the screen back up. But, I think back to being in graduate school for journalism, and you mentioned 25 years since you had graduated. For me, it's 30, and it's like even longer. And the phrase we used to use, and it was way before you think about ChatGPT or Google Gemini and these things, we couldn't even imagine them, but we'd always say garbage in, garbage out. You know? And it really applies to these prompt engineering attempts that you make. And I'd say to people, just, from my own experience, like, don't be afraid to have some trial and error, and it's an iterative process. And it's not always going to pick up on what's in your head. And sometimes something that's obvious to me in the way I write it, it's like, oh, I didn't get it. It's not always able to infer the tone or something that's deep in your thinking. But and then also to just sort of take it little by little. It's not great at digesting these super long prompts. It's not going to be able to get all of it. But to chip away at it slowly. And so I think about the slide you had, it was maybe 1 or 2 slides ago. It had something about the $20 version of ChatGPT. So it kind of brings up the natural question of, if I pay versus doing the free version, how much more am I getting? Is it really worth it? Maybe that question is a function of just what ultimately somebody is just trying to achieve and what they need from the product. But, can you get by well enough without having to spend any money?
Well, there are so many of these tools that you can get by, and use the free version as long as you can. And whether it's ChatGPT, like Google, they bake in a lot of their AI tools to their $20 a month, like Google One plan, where you also get some storage and some other stuff. But if you're not paying for all that other stuff and you don't need it, then you can get by with a lot of their free tools. And one of the things that's amazing to me, though, is how much you can do for free. But then the professional grade stuff isn't often hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. There's so much of that stuff that is $20 or $50 a month. And I'll show a few specific examples when I talk about some of these tools. But like if you're really trying to organize your files better and have, one of the things you often wind up paying for too is not just more usage, but more memory and longer term memory. And so it gives these AI tools more opportunities to learn more about you and adapt more, based on what it's picking up from the kinds of exchanges you're having, content you're giving it. So let's keep diving in. Let's see some examples of how some marketers are putting this in action. And then I'll show some tools to use, a few things to watch out for. Welcome any comments that wind up coming in as well. And it's not about the how long the brand's been around, how new it is, if it's an AI native brand or what's going on. It really matters the people behind it. I like some of these examples from Domino's Pizza. They're not just looking at AI for marketing, they're looking at order accuracy. They're looking at driver tips, right? Like if the orders are more accurate, then drivers are probably going to be tipped better. And you know what? Those drivers probably aren't going to leave Domino's so fast for Instacart or the next better offer. They're going to be way more loyal to the company that's treating them best, right? So all this stuff can be a virtuous cycle, especially if you look at the real business impact. There's a great case study. I'm not going to play this one, but really recommend watching it, where Pedigree wound up creating all of these ads where instead of being about dog food, they were about which dogs are adoptable near you. And they were actually able to have a huge spike in pet adoptions. They were even targeting the certain kind of pet. And they were using AI for the creative to take these pictures of real dogs and put them in different formats and be able to play around with them a bit so that they can be in different size ad units. They were able to target these kinds of ads to different neighborhoods. And Adoptable said that they're going to push all of their advertising in this direction now, because this kind of cause marketing actually wound up working extremely well for their brand. So it's always great to see when someone's doing good and also supporting the business in the process. I love this.
All right, I just want to jump in with one more question. I
Yeah.
feel like there's a bit of a delay, so you started and then I interrupted. So my apologies on that.
All good.
I've got a viewer question from Todd in Los Angeles. Why do AI overviews not show up for every Google search? I've wondered that too.
A lot of this is testing and learning. That there might be even some people who are being used as a control group. Google has billions of opportunities a day to basically run its own experiments. There were some things, and admittedly, there were a number of Binghamton related searches that I was doing that produced no AI overviews. That didn't really help me very much. I was like trying to ask some stuff about some of the latest rankings that Binghamton keeps topping charts in as the best university and of this kind, the best public university here and there. And I was like, I wasn't getting the AI overviews. Finally, Speedies saved me, as they always do. But some of this is like Google also might have some indication that maybe it served 20 other people in AI overview for your exact search, and everyone was scrolling down the page, so they're not going to bother, and they'll refine that.
Yeah, something about food makes it work. So I'm not surprised that the Speedies were the.
It's what I always go to. So.
We have another viewer question from Jamie here in Binghamton. Does ChatGPT Plus, the $20 version, have enough privacy controls for us to submit sensitive information in your prompts? I heard it was safer than the free version, but to what extent?
So yes, I've looked at privacy policies. I am not a lawyer. We've got a lot of Binghamton alumni who are, so I might talk to one of them if you have a really sensitive question. But yes, you get way more control over how ChatGPT uses your data. This is true for most AI tools. Claude, if you're familiar with that from Anthropic, they just updated their privacy settings. They give paid users more control than they do free users. So the answer is yes, with a big asterisk. That first of all, we've seen tech companies be very loose with how they go about things. We're in a largely anti-regulatory climate, especially when it comes to big tech, and there's not necessarily universal consensus, but a lot of momentum behind the idea that we are in a tech arms race right now, and so the government should not be putting controls on this. So you're going to have fewer protections if something goes wrong. I mean, and so some of this does get into some personal preferences and also what your team is comfortable with based on the language there. So we haven't really seen many issues like this get out there, and it's not like we've seen all these stories that we maybe expect to by now of like some top secret product then like being like delivered, just in a report to someone else who's asking, like, is my rival company developing anything top secret? It doesn't quite work like that. It's still a probability engine. And so it's not just taking one person's content and delivering it to someone else, but there are risks involved, and I don't want to underestimate them. So welcome other questions coming in. Beck's was another fun example where they launched an entire beer brand. They only just did a few hundred cases of it, so they were able to sell out pretty quickly. But they actually show on their site all the different ways that they used AI in the process, and I like how they broke it down like this. It's just a really good, relatable example of how they did this. AI does, if the beer tastes bad, there's a soda brand I don't need to name right now that came out with like an AI inspired flavors and everything, and I thought it tasted like fermented prune juice, which was probably not what they were going for. So in this case, the soda of the future, I don't think AI helped any, and I might have hurt their brand a little bit with me, but if there probably were some ways they could have taken a good product and made it better. So ultimately, it's about the problems you're actually solving with AI. Can't get into AI without giving some tool recommendations, especially some of us who are home improvement fans. ChatGPT did help me with this image here as I was prompting for an updated version of tool time. I'm going to give a few examples. There's going to be a sheet with a whole table with some other things that you can go and use yourself. But for creating a ton of ads really quickly, and by the way, all the tools that I'm mentioning are in the like $20, $30 a month or less version, and I think they all have a free version you can try if you're just trying to get a sense of if they work. So these are much more accessible professional tools than like the enterprise ready ones that might have a higher premium. But like this is one I was using for a business I work on, and I gave it so little information, just like a website, a logo, and it's coming up with all of this itself. It would probably be way better if I gave it even more direction, but there were like hundreds and hundreds of these examples. One tool that I use so much, I've used so many times over the years, Opus.pro. Opus is a really good one where I can upload a talk like this, and then once you have the video recording, it doesn't just give you clips, it scores them, and if you dive into it, it will even tell you why one clip it thinks is, say, more shareable than another. Visualization tools, I think one that like most marketers I know don't know about, I love. I'm giving another talk this week, and all my text-heavy slides, I ran them through napkin.ai, and I created visualizations and infographics that I think are way better most of the time than some of the smart art you get in an app like PowerPoint. But it's great. Like the free version of Napkin is awesome. I was using it so much for a talk, I finally had to pay for a month of it. But I couldn't believe they waited that long to tell me I had to do so. Ideogram I've used for a lot of images, including in this deck. What's great about Ideogram is it's super fast. It gives you 4 images at a time. Often they're weird, often they're not what you want, but you can iterate really, really quickly. I like it for a lot of art creation. Vibe coding. There are all these apps that let you create a website from scratch. I wrote a play a few weeks ago, actually. I got a domain for it, and then I had a web app, Lovable, create the entire site from scratch. I had ChatGPT create the logo, and I was just able to do this within a couple of hours and launch an entire site about it. I'm not going to get too technical here in terms of like all the tools you need to know. Once you start diving into this, there are very few of these just like set it and forget it kind of things, but there are all these tools that wind up working together that you could start using to create something pretty powerful. But most of the stuff is free or close to it, and you can do something in a day instead of like having a developer spend months on it. I even created something using an app called Base44 for this very talk. You could try this right now, because I was creating this vibe coded microsite, ouragentic.agency. And if you go to /Bing, or if you scan this Bearcat QR code, then you'll go to the site where you can take this quiz and go through some scenarios about where AI relates to your job, and try this out yourself. I spent about an hour or less on this site, including making the QR code on Bitly and a few of the other bells and whistles. So I haven't gone through this in depth. I'm sure the site could be way better, but again, it's so powerful what you could do on the fly. This is one of those things you could take a screenshot of, you could save this for later. I'm obviously, in a talk like this, don't have time to get into every last tool, but always like sharing some of my recommendations. And every single one of these has a free version, one you can try for free, or that is like max $20-$30 a month for the paid plan. And some of them, like Ideogram and Napkin, way cheaper than that. So before I get into the next thing, any other questions coming in so far, Steve?
Thank you for asking. We do have a few, so this would be a great time to roll into some of them. This question is from Eric. What are the most effective ways you've seen AI used for marketing in the context of ads and social media content? We've mentioned creatives a few times. Do you see AI more useful with scripting images, video, etc.?
Well, I think AI is being used increasingly across the process, and didn't even like get into some things of analyzing what's working effectively. Like, how do you come up with the right segment for where you're going to target something? If you're trying to come up with a media plan, like, how do you figure out where your target audience is really spending their time? There's a whole field that we definitely don't have time to get into today, but I recommend diving into, and I've been geeking out on synthetic audiences, right? Like basically like simulated focus groups, which are controversial right now for sure, but they get into, can you have an AI-based panels that then can give you feedback, and however that's done, like, can it be based on real audience segments? I've seen some very impressive data about some companies deep in this space, but again, like that's really controversial for creative aspects, especially if you don't have access to like full-time graphic designers, video producers, things like that. You can increasingly get pretty far along with so many of the creative aspects. Like my decks right now, again, like, yeah, maybe I could be a better PowerPoint designer too, but things like this are so much more visual and immersive than my decks were 5 years ago, because now I don't have to go and find a freelancer or carve out some budget for that most of the time that I wouldn't have been able to do so if I was just kind of doing something on my own. And now I can constantly think about, how do I enrich this experience, make it more visually appealing? So yeah, like the fact is that AI can be used in some ways, from the ideation to the measurement and all the creative in between throughout the process.
We have two more viewer questions at this point. This one comes from Rachel. If you have AI help you create anything, a website, image, or otherwise, who owns the intellectual property? That's a great question.
Yeah, and this, I mean, we're going to see debated. I actually had a terrific lawyer, a Binghamton alum, Gary Keibel, come on this series that I run, where I talk with us about AI's impact on marketing. And as Gary was talking about, a lot of this is a work in progress. A lot of this is also, are you using a free version where you're going to have less ownership of what you create versus some of the paid versions? Is so much of this is there's this moving target in terms of, is a prompt enough to say that this was, material input that you gave and created something? That some courts, I've seen different things out of this, and I don't want to necessarily get into legality, which gets, you want to have better accuracy, and I don't want to do what AI often does and hallucinate here. But it's murky territory. You need a lot of fine print if you're using AI to generate like a new product from scratch. I'd be very, very wary of that. Coming up with something like an assessment based on this PowerPoint, I'd be way less worried about that. Although I might do some spot checking to make sure it's not outright plagiarized from something else, and make sure it's not too similar to anything else out there. But most importantly, to your question, it is something you do need to keep in mind, and I think we're going to see way more debate and there's like legal precedents emerge from this next few years.
And to me, it sounds like it ties into something that you had a couple of slides ago, where you said you don't need to be a good writer necessarily, but you need to be a good editor. And so you think about maybe not generating an image, but generating an article or some just piece of writing, and using the tool to do that. And I'm not just going to take verbatim what it had, because as you said, you don't know where it came from. It could be completely plagiarized from something else for all you know, and you don't want to take that chance. But I'm injecting my own self into it as the writer / editor, and turning into to more of my own work than just taking the output of it verbatim. Into some interesting territory there.
And if you want to bring up my slides for 1 second, one example of this that maybe saw earlier this year was there was an summer reading list that was syndicated to a lot of reputable newspapers and got in there. And turns out only 5 of the 15 books it recommended were real, right? Like this is what happens also when you have AI just go and do its thing and you don't have any of that human review. And so, so now, and then what happens also if you're, if for the 5 books that are real, you're describing them in a completely inaccurate way, right? Like this just opens yourself up to all kinds of issues that you probably don't want to deal with. So yeah, this is what happens when everything goes unchecked.
I was multitasking here, so it took me a second to come back in. But that's interesting. I remember seeing that about the reading list, and it was funny when you said earlier about you did not use the AI tools to write your book, and I never for a second thought you did. So I had no doubt that was all originally authored content. I'm going to go to a question now from Andy, who asks, what boundaries do you set for yourself or precautions that you take in order to protect your own and your clients' proprietary information when using AI tools? That's another great question.
With these kinds of boundaries, some of it is transparency, with clients, like just making sure that clients know what you're using and understanding their own comfort levels. So that definitely helps, like making sure to use some of the more buttoned up paid versions of tools. Ideally some of the same ones that they're using can go a very long way. Some of this is also, just some of these are judgment calls too, right? Like if you're, if you've got a client with some sensitive information that hasn't been released anywhere, being especially buttoned up, maybe actually go and if you want to work on something in AI, like some of the major tools like ChatGPT and Google Gemini have Canvas mode where you can edit things on the fly. If you're working on a doc like that, maybe you want to actually change the company name before you work on that doc so that there is nothing particularly sensitive about the company or the product. Avoiding uploading any direct customer data unless it's a system that is fully vetted and not using that customer or data, that personally identifiable information, as essentially training data for its other purposes. So yeah, there are lots of precautions I take that I recommend clients take, and you even get into some of this, the golden rule, right? Like how comfortable would you be if you were the client in this case and someone was using your information this way? If someone's ingesting all these blog posts that I've written and using this as data to go and help inform something they're working on, that probably actually makes a lot of sense. It's all publicly available information that way. If someone's doing this based on all the emails I've sent them, my comfort level might be a little bit different.
And one question I'll answer now, and it's going to come up again in the housekeeping at the end, but you get close to one and then people scatter. I was asked through email, will the program be recorded and available for viewing after? Absolutely. That is something we always do. So here's the website address, and you'll want to click on where it says past events, because by the time you go into that, we would have signed off for the day, and I'm going to go have lunch after this, and David's going to go pack his bags for Paris for the super awesome trip he has coming up. So this is the place to check out to get the content from today. And then we archive all the other past webinars there as well. And there's so much great stuff we put together over the last couple of years. So it's all there, and check it out after the show. And I will pop off and put this back on and turn it over to you. We've got about 10 minutes left, and so it's got time to roll through a few more things. And if you have some questions, feel free to send them.
Great. Yeah. Welcome any other questions now and again, or after. And so ultimately just keeping this idea of putting humans first, how do we make AI work for everyone? Super important. There's some great examples of this even in the marketing world, like Michelob Ultra, who used some really impressive AI tech to help a blind person live commentate a basketball game for the Knicks. It never was able to happen before. And so this super fan was able to do something that a few years ago just wasn't possible. So it's amazing seeing where some of this is heading and being able to open up possibilities. The idea now that's shifting and that we're going to have to get more used to is that a lot of the marketing that we're doing, it needs to be designed for bots, right? For consumers' agents, for companies' agents. These autonomous algorithms that can make decisions on their own behalf. So your bot might know that there's certain brands of sneakers that you really like if you're a sneakerhead, and if there's a special like collector's edition on sale, you'll pay 50% more than you normally would, but to always look for these kinds of discounts and order from these retailers first, and these avoid these editions, things like this. All of this like surfacing these things for you, just similarly to how I essentially used an agent to order dinner for me. Might not have worked out so well the first time, but again, it's going to. And you see how AI agents are progressing. There is this fascinating site about AI 2027, and you see just the speed of developments of like these superhuman, super intelligent constructs here. How fast are we going to get there? There's some pretty damn smart researchers behind this, and it's kind of fascinating to see what some of this potential can be. As far as how I'm staying on top of AI, again, like I like sharing all these kinds of resources. You can scan this code. You can go to bit.ly/AI resource list with the hyphens, and see just a lot of newsletters and things like that I find useful for staying on top of things. I mentioned that the most important word in AI is yet, and we have this special edition of a Binghamton Bearcat Yeti that might not be too kosher having this Bearcat Yeti hybrid, but I love this Yeti. He shows up in just about all my decks because it is the most important thing. If it hasn't done something good, if it hasn't done something bad, right? Like then we just probably haven't seen it yet. I welcome more questions, and also as you want to stay in touch, I'm on LinkedIn, email, way too many things. Happy to stay connected and just share these resources, share slides, links, whatever it is you need, you missed, or things that you come up with later on.
And we'll go ahead and we'll leave this up for a little bit to give everybody plenty of time to take this information down, take a screenshot, write it down, whatever you need. And David is always super helpful for anyone in the Binghamton universe. So if you think of something after, certainly email him and he will answer. Or if you email me, I can pass the questions along and we'll get them answered that way. So we'll go to an audience question that had just come in. What AI tools do you recommend for lead generation, say direct to consumer?
Well, there are lots of tools that are big on list building. I mean, there's Clay is pretty good for customer relationship management and enhancing data in leads. Like there's some tools that are out there that you might have seen, like Apollo for list building, that increasingly use AI. We're going to see more and more of this come in some of the mainstream tools like LinkedIn Sales Navigator. I've seen a lot of stuff with like very high noise to signal ratios, and I've tested a lot of these sales automation tools that they're getting there. There's one called Ample Market that's a little higher end. They're more in like the $600 a month territory. So different price point that I've been talking about. That's pretty good for finding signals of what your audience is talking about. CopilotAI.com for doing some like list building and LinkedIn automation. I'm very wary of some things that take do too much of the messaging automation. I see comments on my own LinkedIn posts all the time that I know are just like, it's like AI trying too hard. It's like, well, because you run a community, it is so inspiring to see. It's like you can hear the robot's voice talking to you. I'm like, just talk to me like a person. It doesn't matter who you are if we know each other. Like I want to use LinkedIn to connect with people and not bots, but I'll stop ranting and answer any more questions.
And we have one that just came in, so we'll take this one, and then we may just go ahead and wrap up as we've reached the top of the hour. But if you have a question, quickly get it in, and I will do it. Actually, we just got another one, so we'll take these two. How are brands being transparent about the fact that their messaging and images, even just ideas, were created with AI? Does it matter to brands and users? That's a great question. I wrote down the same thing, and I was halfway afraid to ask it. I wrote down, how much do you think people are paying attention to this, to where they could discern this was real, this was AI? Maybe they don't really care. So I'll leave it to you, David, on that one.
Well, the answer I'll give is not the answer necessarily that I want to give, because there has been some research on this already, and maybe you recall Coca-Cola's holiday campaign, and they came out with a spot that was very heavily AI generated, and to some folks on the creative side of the ad industry, it was even painful. Yeah, but when there was some research and testing being done as far as like what are consumers' reactions to it, turns out the ad industry was basically its own echo chamber, and so like so many ad creatives, creative professionals might have disliked it. People actually didn't care and actually performed better than some of the other kinds of ads that were running. So I think that more and more people don't necessarily care even how transparent brands are with this, and if we see the whole rise of AI influencers that I think most consumers, especially younger ones, know are AI influencers. You see people knowingly get into what they think in their head are consensual relationships with chatbots, which is a whole other field. But like people going into this, like even knowing something is fake, but it feels very real to them and it does what they want to do. And often it's just harmless, like influencer generated content. And to some degree, like while I'm very big on transparency as a general rule, if you look at the difference between like Photoshop being used to say airbrushing a model and making them look skinnier or whiter or something, that feels very, very wrong, right? Or AI to go and adjust the lighting of a photo shoot and just like make the burger look a little bit better when you're going in and showing this on a billboard. Then like that's probably that's something that marketers have been using for decades. And so just because someone's using AI for it doesn't necessarily mean that all this disclosure is even needed in the first place. But there's a lot of gray area in there.
We'll take our last question, and here it is. What would you recommend to someone entering the working world right now in marketing and brand consulting? What is the most important thing to keep in mind if you're going for entry-level roles?
I'd say the most important thing to keep in mind is a version of what I've been recommending since the dawn of social media at scale. And that's you have access to tools you didn't have before. You have ways to interact with people you didn't have before. You have ways to create things that you couldn't have created before, most likely. So with all of this, it's like learn by doing. You can join communities. I don't care if it's mine, like happy to have you, but like, find your tribes, find people to learn from, find the blog or the podcast or whatever it is, the TikTok account, the LinkedIn page that speaks to you, and spend some time interacting with it. Like talk to the people behind it, try reaching out to them, try to learn a little bit more, push things a little bit harder. A lot of my information doesn't come from great newsletters out there, great analysts I follow, things like that. It comes from like, I tried building this thing and this thing was awesome and this thing sucked and this thing broke. And so that might make me more informed in some ways, less informed in others, but at least it's real. And I think you have that opportunity as much as I do. Like we're on the same playing field in that regard, and that's really exciting. And the fact is that not all of your peers are going to be using these tools to their advantage. Not all these peers are going to be using AI to prep for job interviews and to try to learn about new topics in ways that speak to you. Maybe you're a more visual learner or a text learner or an audio learner, and you can use AI to help adapt materials to help you learn things in ways that speak to you. So there are just so many wonderful things that you can do now that you couldn't have done a few years ago. And now's your chance to use them. And hopefully by following some discussions like this and some of the other resources that I cite here, then it just gives you a little bit more of that head start.
Well, David, thank you very much. This has been a fast-moving hour, as it always is, but the amount of content we received during the session was just tremendous. And I'm sure it's going to help, regardless of where people were coming into this, help them to do what they do better. So thank you very much. Always so generous with your time for us here at the university. I know you love Binghamton a lot and the Binghamton people. So our appreciation for spending the time with us and sharing your knowledge to help everyone to do their work in a more effective way.
Thanks so much, Steve. It's always a pleasure being with you in the Binghamton community.
And just a quick note before we wrap up, and I had this graphic up on the screen a little bit earlier, alumlc.org/Binghamton. So if you want to see this program again or any others, that is the place to do it. It also has the schedule under upcoming events of the webinars that we have planned, and you'll see that we have things going on once a month through the end of the calendar year. And I'm just going to quickly read off here what we have, and you can go in. Some of these are open for registration, others not just yet, that are a little bit further away from us on the calendar. Our next webinar is going to be Wednesday, October 22nd at noon Eastern, Breaking the Stigma of Addiction with Merritt Hartblay from the class of 76, and he came back to get his MSW 40 years later in 2016. If you didn't have enough of AI from today, you're in luck, because Wednesday, November 5th, we'll be talking about generative AI in legal and project management. Different focus than we had here today, but you can see AI is a thread that runs through an awful lot of things these days. Simone Sterling from the class of 98 is going to be our presenter. And then we'll close out calendar year 2025 with a webinar December 3rd at noon Eastern with Andrew Wilner from the class of 92, putting your resume to work. So if looking for a new job is something that you want to do once you get into 2026, that webinar will hopefully be helpful in that being able to come together for you. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up for today. For David Berkowitz, I'm Steve Seepersod. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Binghamton Learning Network.